Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Some more stories. Germany's foreign ministry said that it summoned the Russian ambassador on Monday over direct threats from Russia against targets in Germany. The threats are an attempt to undermine our support for Ukraine and test our unity, the ministry said in a post on X. The ministry also said that Germany will not be intimidated by any threats and that all forms of espionage in Germany are completely unacceptable. As per German official, Russia's defense ministry last week published a list on its official Telegram channel containing 21 companies Moscow considers either subsidiaries of Ukrainian defense companies or suppliers of key components, which included at least 3 German firms. And for more, DW correspondent Thomas Sparrow joins us live from Berlin. Hi Thomas, good to have you. First of all, can you give us more details about this decision by the German Foreign Ministry?
It's not the first time that the German Foreign Ministry summons the Russian ambassador here in Berlin. There have been instances in the past where the ambassador has been summoned, but it is clear that a summoning of an ambassador is a very strong reaction from one government towards another government, a strong reaction when it comes to expressing dissatisfaction to a move by another government. So this decision by the German Foreign Ministry is certainly a decision that will make more difficult any kind of relationship between Germany and Russia, between Russia and the European Union. Germany sees this, and you mentioned that in your introduction, as something that is not acceptable from a Russian perspective. The German Foreign Ministry did not explain what exactly it meant by those direct threats, but several media outlets here in the country have indeed linked them to that list that you mentioned, where several German companies were explicitly mentioned. And there's also been reports that members of Russia's Security Council have actually also mentioned the possibility of that threat towards German companies. So what all these highlights is also the need from a German perspective to increase, on the one hand, its support towards Ukraine, on the other hand, to also increase its preparedness when it comes to dealing with some of those threats that are coming from Russia.
Thomas, also, in what ways might these alleged Russian threats affect broader NATO strategies across Europe amid ongoing Ukraine support?
You mentioned an important element, because this is not just something bilateral. In fact, other European countries whose companies were also mentioned in that list have also reacted. For example, Czech Republic also demanded some answers from Russia specifically to these direct threats. And what this is actually stressing, what this is highlighting, is the need to have also an answer at a European level, not only an answer at a bilateral level. And you mentioned also NATO in your question, because NATO and NATO allies have been at the heart of support towards Ukraine since the war in Ukraine began in 2022. And there have been calls for NATO members to increase that support and to sustain that support, because there's also a general sense, a perceived sense of Ukraine aid fatigue in many European capitals. So it's becoming more and more difficult for European governments to actually explain why it's necessary from their point of view to continue supporting Ukraine.
Thomas, also, what security measures are European countries adopting in response to alleged threats from Russia?
Different security measures. So first and foremost, strengthening their own military capabilities. That's something that's been happening over the last few years. Second, strengthening Ukraine's military capabilities. You may know that this list that is at the center of the current debate is also related to Ukraine's drone production capabilities. That is something that from a Russian perspective is seen as a provocation, but from a European perspective is seen as something very important to help Ukraine's defense. So those are 2 elements. And a third element is also focusing on cybersecurity. So not necessarily on only what is happening on the battlefield, but also looking at other ways in which the war in Ukraine has actually developed in the last few years. So you can see there 3 clear elements that explain why, from a European perspective, it is particularly important to continue increasing their defense, Ukraine's defense, and also defense from different perspectives.
All right, Thomas Sparrow, we'll leave it at that. Thank you for your inputs. Moving on.